Here is part two, and this is going to give us an opportunity to delve a little bit deeper into learning environments and to actually start by accessing those spaces. So as we consider reimagining or modifying our learning spaces, and we think, oh, I would love to do this with my learning space, we at the same time need to think about accessing those spaces. So how can we support our learners in terms of helping them view and make sense of what they're actually experiencing? In many ways, this relates specifically to scaffolding. So what scaffolds might we provide to help them make sense of their environment? We think about this all the time when we teach readers. What ideas, what strategies, what skills are we trying to help them develop so they can actually access the text that we're having them read? In this case, it's a matter of accessing the environment. So the strategies that we use to make sense of our environment include two categories or two groups. One is the listening levels. The webinar series last week included listening levels, and that involves appreciative, discriminative, critical, strategic, and precise listening levels. So if you have a chance and you missed, go ahead and jump into the archive and learn about listening levels. You don't have to stop there. You can go to Listen Here, a text where the listening levels are broken down in specifically to support you. The other set of strategies that we want to zoom in on for today are viewing tactics. Both the listening levels and the viewing tactics, information on those are available at this bit.ly, and that'll be posted in the chat box for you to cut and paste, and you can go there to check it out now or when you have a chance later. So to unpack the viewing tactics for just a moment and help you understand how viewing might support learners in your reimagined learning spaces. In particular, this has everything to do with our remote learning spaces because we're expecting our students, our learners, the content that we're trying to convey through the environment. So this is actually pivotal. It's nothing short of necessary or essential. So thinking about this will be very helpful to you and your students. The first tactic or the set of tactics is discriminative viewing, viewing for details, structure, arrangement, how the text supports images. Precise viewing, what are the purposes of the creator or the people involved, the message that's being projected, those characters that are involved. Strategic viewing is the image or set of images, the visual representation, is it credible? Credible for what? Is this information that needs to be assimilated or accommodated as new information? What is it synthesized as meaning? What is cause and effect, and what questions are related to it? Critical viewing, what is the bias presented? What is the objective of the image or set of images? Fact versus opinion, the role of the participants and that of the audience. And then appreciative viewing, what kind of emotions are evoked? What is your personal reaction to what you're seeing, what you're experiencing? What's the reasoning behind the creation of it in the first place, the facilitation of it, and or your reaction to it, and what impact does that have on you? It'd be highly appropriate if you have any questions to jot those in the chat box and or unmute and just holler at me, Keith, or Kyle. If you have questions about viewing, we're going to delve more deeply into these, possibly in a later webinar or in a follow-up PD. We're going to move further into understanding space and purposeful learning environments as we explore the enhancement of those spaces. So when we consider enhancement, what we thought was pretty logical was, man, we use so many strategies already that help us understand, in particular, primary sources and what primary sources are most powerful. And absolutely, hopefully, jumping to your mind is see, think, wonder, observe, reflect, question. Because when we have learners actually look for the details in what they're seeing, oftentimes we use a map, or we use a picture, or we use a cartoon to have our learners look for the specifics, look for the details, to help them draw greater understanding and dig deeper in terms of thinking as they kind of make connections and they reflect on what they know. I think this is, or I believe this has to do with, and then that can lead them further into very powerful opportunities to create questions that, for us as teachers, help them reveal what their understanding is and or their misconceptions, and helps us identify spaces, learning spaces, for us to fill gaps or lead further inquiry. As we think about creating spaces, we've gone through this series of studying and exploring space, learning environments, so to speak. And once we realize that enhancing space then leads us to actually new opportunities to create brand new spaces. So in this day and age, I don't know about all of you, I'm pretty certain, I can imagine, we're creating a lot of new spaces. So as I create a space, a new space each day for my learners to find greater access, to think more deeply, to showcase their understanding in meaningful ways, for me to assess and monitor their understanding, I delve into all these past kind of levels of understanding of learning space that we've explored. But here I have a really practical and powerful space, no pun intended, for us to go to help create more spaces for teaching and learning. So here's a little hint of this space. Does anyone happen to know where this space is at and or what it is involved with? You can write your idea in the chat. Guess, you don't have to be correct, but what kind of space, where am I taking you in hopes of you taking your learners, regardless of where they're learning? Library of Congress, LOC. Does anyone know the specific building that these cherubs reside on? Mary, that's cheating. Nice work, all of you. This is beautiful. So then we move forward and we go to other spaces, or thinking further. So the outside of the Jefferson building, let's take a look at that. Anyone happen to know what this space outside the Jefferson building is a part of? Yeah, Holly, my public library. That's a beautiful place to go. Be thinking LOC. You can't go to the LOC right now. Access your public library digitally. So this is an outside space of the Library of Congress that we can take our students to virtually. We can continue to expand our space and their spaces for learning by taking them to places such as that. Or additionally, we can take them to a space like this. You know, and that's beautiful, Nikki. You remind me that, you know, the LOC has a phenomenal set of virtual tours that you can take yourself on to garner understanding. But why would you go there when you could actually challenge your students to take them outside of their traditional spaces and enhance their understanding, and then bring that understanding back? So jigsawing, if you will, in certain ways, using particular strategies. Yeah, absolutely, Laura. I think you're right on, because as I walked through this space, you could virtually spend, you know, an hour. Kyle had brought up earlier, 1 square foot in the yard in the grass. You could do a 1 square foot looking at the tiles on the floor in this great room. That's absolutely true. And then we can dig deeper, so we can go further into this space, and realizing that the LOC has some phenomenal spaces for us to take our learners and ourselves. And think about this room. Go ahead and list in the chat box any ideas you have for using this space certainly we can't go there right now physically, but how can you use this space in what contexts, what subjects, or what teaching and learning challenges, skills, or strategies? How could you use this? Love it. Michelle, absolutely. When you walk in there, you think symmetry, you think, oh, this is a geometric playground. Right on, Judy. Absolutely, Bonnie. Math. This room has math written all over it, screaming math learning. Not to mention, Kyle and Keith and I have done a series of professional development opportunities revolving around materials and thinking like a scientist, thinking like an inventor. So you think about the materials that are a part of this space and how they were fabricated, for what purposes, how have they changed over time? Is this all, are these relics based on how they were initially fabricated, or are these modified and re-envisioned, so to speak, through renovation? So what I want to do right now, if you would, yeah, I love the idea of sports arena, and you think about our students and their connection to their interests. I really love that you brought that up, Judy, because we can take our teaching and learning, the challenges, the objectives that we need to pursue, and we can throw those into a space like a stadium that our students are familiar with or interested in because of their sport, because of their favorite sport, their favorite athletes or whatever. Not only that, you could take this into kind of shopping modes. You could take this into directions of fast food or service industries, cooking, baking, the kitchen, the oven. Think about all the spaces and places we could take learners to enhance their understanding. I want you to take a minute to write an idea for reimagining a learning environment in this Google Doc. So if you'd actually jump to this bit.ly, you're going to see this page, possibly. I guess it didn't load. So you're going to actually cut and paste it. It's posted in the chat box. So if you would actually cut and paste that bit.ly and go to it and jot down at least one of your ideas for reimagining a learning space or environment that you have, so you can share those with your peers. I'm going to let you do that for a couple minutes to get started, and then I'm going to unmute and we'll wrap up, and I'll answer any questions. We'll extend our understanding by sharing a little bit. Go for it. Right on. That's pretty amazing. I'm loving seeing what you all are coming up with in the Google Doc. And someone wrote, keep it simple. Absolutely. If you can slightly tweak a current space that you have, for example, and this may not be slight, but changing Google Docs to utilizing Pear Deck. That's taking something that you have and repurposing it, so to speak, to achieve greater goals. I noticed a bunch of killer ideas that I want to shout out. Conversations or interviews. Realize that places like the Library of Congress still have tons of people that are hoping to serve teachers like yourselves. You can reach out to them and have some conversations. Use that to inspire student to LOC members conversations, interviews, interview an expert, student challenges. How about making or challenging the students to come up with a unique and interesting space? Gaming spaces. I love the idea of going to the LOC and finding a reading room that particularly kind of invigorates you or inspires you or kind of showcases who you are as a learner. All beautiful ideas. This wasn't all the ideas, but I just wanted to give a shout out for a few that I noticed. Any questions, ideas, thoughts that you have that you want to share with the entire group within our last few minutes?
This is fantastic. One of the learning environments that I started thinking about is this closet right next to me that my son often closes when he has his iPad or a car or something like that, and it's completely dark in there, and he'll just play in the dark. And it made me think about that darkness slide that you showed, and how there isn't much room for like solitude, for getting away and being just the subject of your own thoughts in many classrooms. So I was thinking about ways of how we could encourage solitude or have a solitude space, solitary space.
That's beautiful, Kyle. That really resonates with me right now. As much as I love being around my family, there are times when there's just too much going on, and it reminds me that the noise canceling headphones are critical devices, to help me find that solitude, much like the darkness that you gave the example with your son. Any others? Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed recently, I've spent a lot of time perusing the LOC, and every time I open a page, that just kind of reveals this immense space for my learning to occur and just generates idea after idea for me to take back to my social studies methods learners, my teachers of writing, and all my classes, to PDs such as this. If you get a chance, make sure you reach out to one of us and ask for further ideas or kick around some ideas with each other. I noticed many of you know each other in the chat. This is a beautiful opportunity for you to support one another. And this is absolutely the best time. I've found it to be the best time for me to just kick around teaching and learning. Before, I waited for those opportunities that Keith and Kyle and Crystal and I had to sit in the same room and kind of like argue with each other and bring up awesome ideas and say, oh, what about this? What about this? And now we get to do that on a more regular basis because we're kind of, I guess, taking advantage of this online realm that we're all playing in and exploring. So I encourage you to do the same. Unless anyone has any questions or any notes to share, I would encourage you to continue your thinking after this. Just sit, challenge yourself, set your phone timer, your alarm, give yourself 5 minutes and just jot down an idea or two that you want to pursue for your very next endeavor, maybe a big project that you want to dig more deeply in, and get in touch with Keith and Kyle and I and have us help you do so. We're here for you.
Yeah, thanks, Roland. I really think that that 5 minutes to reflect and jot down isn't just jotting one thing down and being done after 10 seconds. It's really taking that 5 minutes and doing, free writing as a lot of classes do, and just write anything that you can think of. Who cares if the 90% of it is bad? It's good to take that 5 minutes fully. So again, thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Raleigh, for presenting. Thank you, Keith and Crystal, also for manning the chat room, and of course, the Library of Congress for making these webinars possible through the Teaching with Primary Sources program. As a reminder, for those who would like a professional development certificate for your participation, the link is up on the screen. It's bit.ly/PS Teaching Online. And you can go ahead and fill out just a really brief reflection, and we'll send those certificates to you. All resources will all be shared on the TPS Teachers Network in that album soon, and I believe that link will be posted in the chat shortly as well. And thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.